I'm very excited because I have a heart for you guys, people your age. I always kind of put myself in the mindset of what it was like when I was in y'all's shoes. Who is about to graduate? Do y'all kind of have like a weird like graduation anxiety at all? Like this thought of, even if you have a plan of like what you're going to do, is it like this weird unknown that you're going to kind of step into? Do you know what I'm kind of talking about? Every time that I think of like graduating, and also feel free to shout something out at me. Y'all don't have to sit there all kind of quiet. But I think of like where I was when I was in y'all's shoes, in this weird kind of like unknown position of what the future holds. You may have a plan, you may have an idea of like what school you're going to go to, but I can tell you, and I'm sure most people who have graduated can tell you, that there's a lot of things that you may have planned for, but life's going to turn out completely different. The things that you kind of have your mind set on, the school that you want to go into or go to, the field you may want to go into, like that can totally change. You can go off and be like, you know what, I really don't like this. So I think of myself in y'all's shoes. Like y'all are kind of step into something that's completely unknown. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here just because, I just have a heart for you guys. And I want to kind of tell you guys how I kind of came about, because I would have never thought that I would be in a position where I get to speak to people or be able to come into the school. It's always been a weird thing anytime that I've always done it. But I want to tell you some of my backstory on how I got here, and I promise it all makes sense when I get to the end, because every detail matters. The biggest thing that I want everybody in here, in this room, to know, if there's one thing that you could take away, is I want everybody in here to know that they have a purpose. That I believe that everybody in here has a God-given, appointed time to be here right now. Like every decision that you've made, good or bad, has kind of led you to this moment. And I believe that God has a purpose for you. So a little backstory about me. So I grew up in Conroe. I was raised there. My parents divorced when I was 4. Grew up in Conroe up until about, let me get to junior high. So it's really interesting. So what do y'all call Coach Baker? I call him Coach. What do y'all call him? Is he Mr. Chip? Mr. Baker? Coach Baker, okay. So when I was in junior high, which was a really long time ago, he was my coach. So I got to meet him in the 7th grade, and he was my coach for 2 years. Now, I've asked him, and he doesn't really remember this, but I played football, and they would pick like the top 2 student athletes of 7th and 8th grade, and they would kind of travel around, and they'd go to the elementary schools and just talk about what it means to be a student athlete and the importance of doing schoolwork. And I believe with all of my heart that it was Coach Baker that was the one that was taking us around, and it was his initiative. So just a little cool thing for him. He's been doing this for a hot minute. So yeah, huh?
I thought he was pretty young.
Yeah, he is pretty young at heart for sure. So we'd go around, we'd go to these schools. My freshman year at Conroe High, my family decided to move to Willis. So from 9th grade to the year that I graduated, I was at Willis. And I played football. I had every intention of wanting to go off to school and to become a coach. I wanted to become a teacher. But my senior year, we had some like crazy stuff happen. We had a coaching change. We ended up on Channel 2 News. We ended up on Good Morning America. We ended up losing every game that year. We went 0-10. So going into graduation, I started really having this kind of this soul-searching type moments. And I wanted to go off to Sam, and I was supposed to go off to orientation, and right at the last minute, I started thinking about losing, how we lost every game, and I was like, man, if I have another season like this, I don't want to do it. I don't know that I could take it. So my senior year, right after graduating, just before I was supposed to go to orientation, I bailed. And I said, I'm not going to school. I'm not going to do that. I ended up following my heart, ended up moving to New York. Now, why this is important is I ended up doing some things that put me in front of people, which allowed me to speak. I ended up realizing while I was out in New York that maybe I wasn't cut out for New York. So it brought me right back to Texas. When I got back, I ended up getting into like some construction stuff, just kind of hold me over while I was trying to figure out what I was doing, and started learning how to play guitar. So while I was learning to play guitar, I was just consider myself a little better musician. I grew up only listening to rap, so the only thing I knew was Eminem. I didn't listen to any songs that had a guitar, so the first song, fun fact, the first song I ever learned on guitar was You Belong With Me by Taylor Swift. So there's that. But I learned to play guitar, and for the next about year and a half, I just kind of played guitar, went to work. I ended up getting enrolled into this martial arts class, and I did all kinds of weird things. I got into this martial arts class, and actually had a lot of promise in it. Was offered to go off to move out of the country and open up my own school. And while that happened, I ended up going to go play a pickup football game and blew out my knee. My knee's still janky to this day. It's every once in a while, like it's getting cold out, so like I'll have to like unlock my knee to make sure it works. But ended up after blowing out my knee, like I was just chilling in my room, depressed, sad, because I mean this isn't what I kind of pictured for myself. It's like all these what ifs, these little situations where you're like, man, should I have gone off to school? Should I have done what everybody else had told me to do? What I had initially set out to do? And in this season, I had my grandma just really poured into me and be like, you just need to go outside. And I was like, I'm not going outside, Grandma. And ended up in Cleveland. I met a friend out there and ended up working for my friend's mom for a screen printing business. Not only do they do screen printing, you know what screen printing is? It's like t-shirts, t-shirt printing. We did business cards. It was a promotional company. When I first got there, it's a decently sized company. I think the first year in sales was like $800,000, and then every year after that, while I was there, it was well over $1 million in sales. So a good amount. Have you know the guy Unspeakable? Have y'all ever heard of that YouTuber? We did a lot of his printing too. So that was pretty cool. So like there was thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of clothing for this guy. But while there, kind of parallel timeline, not only was I working at this company, but I was also volunteering at a church. I don't know how I ended up at this church. I just did. And I just showed up every week and had this weird situation where I was offered to be able to play guitar for the church, and things kind of progressed, and I ended up moving into a position of music director, which is weird because I only knew rap, and here I am playing guitar and singing to Jesus. I don't think Eminem has ever sang to Jesus, but ended up in this music director role. COVID hits at the company that I was at, and like business slows down a ton. I never thought that I would ever leave this company. I ended up getting offered a position at the church full time. And so while at the church, step into a position for creative director, eventually becoming the creative pastor there at the church as well. And that's how I kind of got into the whole camera stuff, is that I just had to go around, take pictures, videos, get whatever I could at the church. Now, the reason I say all this, it seems like a lot, but I mean, y'all are in high school. Y'all have probably all done or had a lot of things happen to you, or that y'all have done a lot of stuff, right? I believe that God uses every detail of our lives to help assemble what it is that we are going to do later in life. Does that make sense? So I believe that there is a purpose behind every little moment that we go through. Every detail. So I believe everybody in this room is also called to be a leader. I've heard it said before that you can't, that leaders are born. You can't be taught to be a leader, but I completely disagree with that. I think you learn to be a leader over time by doing the little things. So if I were to say, what comes to mind when I think of a leader? Anybody?
Someone who stands out from everyone else.
That's good.
Someone who takes charge.
Yeah. What else? Someone with good communication skills. Someone who's confident. Ambitious.
Able to have tough conversations.
That's a big one. Tough conversation is a big thing. So these are all really, really good characteristics of what a leader is. Now, I want y'all to think of somebody in your life, a couple of people, who is a leader to you. Just anybody. It can be a parent, teacher, coach, someone at the church. Now, when you think of that person, does this person have those qualities that we just talked about? Yeah? I want y'all to know that these people don't have these qualities just because they are a leader. They are a leader because they have these qualities. They didn't just step into the role and then be like, okay, all of a sudden, you know what, I'm going to have great time management. You know what, now all of a sudden I'm going to be able to have these conversations. Look, being in the church world is really, really strange. I've had weird conversations, weird hard conversations with the company that I was at. And then to step into like the church, it's a different ball game. So being able to learn how to communicate, it is a learned trait. But those skills of like time management or a good vision, those are all things that we have to work at. So I think it's very important that we all know that being a leader is not about the position that you hold, but about the person that you are. Does that make sense? Has anybody in here ever been around a leader that's I'm going to say a poor person, like just not money, but just like has terrible leadership skills? The longevity of that, if you were to be around those leaders, isn't very, very long. You've got to be able to have these skills to be able to become the leader that you are. So I want y'all to think about that, because I believe, if I were to ask y'all right now, where do y'all see yourselves in 5 years? Is anybody brave enough to answer that question? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Post high school?
Question on an interview, and I didn't know what to say. And what I told him was I think he's more good.
That's really good. That's actually a really solid answer. Anybody else?
We're still in school.
Still in school? What about the stereotypical question that you hear all the time when you're little? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Astronaut.
An astronaut, yeah.
Mortician.
A mortician? That's crazy. I like it. What else?
A lawyer.
A lawyer. Now, oftentimes when we ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? It comes down to this job. Like you're going to say a job. But you never hear someone say, I just want to be a great dad. You said great, which is actually a really, really solid answer. But you never hear like, who do you want to be as a person? Because I can ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you can tell me your job. You can tell me this role. But becoming a leader that you're called to be, all of those are just roles. And when you're a leader, that you have the ability to be able to go into any position on any level and to be able to influence and change the atmosphere. Does that make sense? One of the biggest things that I would see in the church is, if you're looking at things by title, by role, people, would y'all agree that door greeters have a decently important role? Why is that? First face, set the tone, and those are all good answers. It's easy when you start getting into that to look at that role as like, man, I'm not anybody. I'm not the pastor. I'm not whatever. But if you can learn to lead at that level, you do that. You set the tone. You're the first face. So, a couple of things that I'll give you three big things to me that I've learned over this period of time, because I do believe that you guys have a purpose and that God uses and sets up every little thing. He orders your steps, that He does all of this for eventually who you will become. So the very first thing that I want y'all to know is what you do today shapes who you'll be tomorrow. So, example for me, all the little intricate things, like even something as small as playing guitar in my room, God will use those little things to be able to, just be able to serve Him. I'm not trying to get into all the church stuff, but God will use little moments from your life that you thought that didn't matter, that were just kind of discarded. God will use those things, and it'll be used for your purpose, to be able to reach somebody. Every person in this room has the ability to reach somebody that somebody else in this room will never, ever reach. Does that make sense? Like, why I love this age is that you guys, I feel like the options are limitless. Like, y'all's future is so wide. So y'all have the opportunity to be able to go in and change the atmosphere. I had no idea that the little things that I would be doing, that God would use. So back when I was in junior high, I told you that I would speak with like Coach Baker would take us around and we'd travel and we'd speak. Like, I had no idea that eventually that was something that I would do professionally. But it's this little moment. Even in that same amount of time, I was on like the news team, and I learned how to do video. I learned how to do photography. I learned how to do media then, and I had no idea, again, that I would use that later on in life. So what you do today shapes who you'll be tomorrow. So something to think about when you're thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, if you will, is think about who do you want to be when you grow up, and that'll dictate what you do today, because today matters. Does that make sense? So if you want to be a top athlete, maybe you shouldn't be like me and go to Crumble like once a week and you get all 5 of their cookies, because it'll change your body. Because what you do today shapes your tomorrow. Does that make sense? So what you do today shapes who you'll be tomorrow. So who do you want to be? The second thing is be faithful in the little things, because they'll prepare you for the big things. Those little moments that I have where I'm doing video and I'm doing photography, I've been in places where people don't really take value. Like, you can kind of go in and you just be like, okay, I get this, and this, I'm done. And then you take it and you go back and you edit and you're like, I could do, just a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and you just call it done. But if you were to take the time, and actually make the effort to do it, you'll learn how to do it better. Does that make sense? Like, if you can take a moment and really, really push yourself, be in the moment, as Coach Baker says, apply yourself in the moment. You never know when God will take that one thing that you're doing and use it later on. Does that make sense? All of these kind of run together, but they really do matter, because if you're focusing on being in the moment of locking in and applying yourself, you never know where that will take you. So what you do today shapes who you'll be tomorrow. Be faithful in the little things, because they'll prepare you for the big things. And the last point I want to make is your future starts way before you graduate. That's important to know, because I think when you're thinking about the future, sometimes you're thinking about, man, if I could just have this, man, if I just had more money, man, if I just had more time, man, all these what ifs in the situation. But if you can just apply yourself again right now, if you could be faithful in the little things, it's the little things that'll lead you to the big things. I love what Kobe Bryant says. Kobe talks about with his practice. He says, why do you think that I'm the best player in the world? Or why do you think that I'm the best player in the world? He says, because I never, ever got bored with the basics. It's doing the little things over and over and over that lead you to the big things. So if you're worried about the future, if you're trying to figure out what you'll do later on in life, let's focus on who do you want to be later on in life. Because what you do today will help shape you to become that thing. Does that make sense? All right, that's all I got for you. Anybody have any questions? All right, cool. Thank you, guys.